Welcome to Brain Health Matters, a show dedicated to helping you improve your health, master your mind, and boost your brain. I'm your host, Kate Kunkel, and this week's guest is Tami Briggs, a harpist who will be sharing the transformative and healing power of music.
Brain Health Matters is brought to you by The Musical Brain, Book 3 in the Healthy Brain series. Enjoy the fun and easy practices in this book to improve your memory, sharpen focus, and master your mind with the healing power of music. Available on Amazon everywhere.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm Kate Kunkel, your host here on Brain Health Matters, and I'm joined today by Tami Briggs. Tami is a pioneer in the harp therapy field and has played harp at the bedside of hundreds of hospital and hospice patients. Tami uses her clinical training and music experience to create an oasis of relaxation and peace as she assists patients, caregivers, and staff members on their journeys to healing or to the ultimate destination. Welcome, Tami.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
I'm just delighted to have another harpist on the show. Actually, I believe probably many of my viewers don't even realize that I'm a harpist because I'm so focused on the brain health issues. But this month, I'm inviting all kinds of musical therapists and healers to join me in honor of what I've dubbed the March Healing Music Month, because I think that music doesn't get quite enough attention as far as healing is concerned. How do you feel about that, Tami?
I agree with you, and I think it really makes a difference. And I've had several experiences playing at the bedside that I can share as we go along about how music, I believe, really did help brain health. That's kind of a tongue twister, actually.
Music helps brain health. Yes, it did. It is actually. Tami, let's start with one of those examples. I'd love to hear one of your stories.
So one of the things that music does is when we're learning an instrument, it helps our eye-hand coordination. So like when you're learning the notes on the music page and then you're transferring that to piano or guitar or the harp, it helps that whole brain function. And as that brain function develops, one of the things that happens, I believe, is the corpus callosum of the brain, which is the bridge to the right brain and the left brain, gets stronger, it strengthens, and it actually thickens. And music, as we learn music or play music, can actually help thicken that corpus callosum, which is that bridge. And what ends up happening is as that bridge thickens, that's actually balancing, helping us physically balance our right and our left brains. And we know that we so desperately need balance these days. So anything that we can do to balance both hemispheres of the brain, but also then help us internally balance is really, really important and vital. And I see that as just one of many musical roles, one of the roles that music can play.
So, Tami, you've done a lot of work at the bedside, both for healing and for helping people transition. Has there ever been a specific instance that you felt that your music or any music might have helped someone either take the final step or have quite a change in their healing?
You know, I have many stories. One of the principles that I use a lot when I'm at the bedside is called entrainment. And entrainment is where our bodies synchronize or pulse with different rhythms that we're working with. And especially at the end of life, you can help someone transition by just continuing to slow the pulse of the music. And what that does is it helps the brain and all of the physicality pulse with that slowing tempo, and it's a very lovely way to help people transition. And you know, I can play just a quick example. So if you start out kind of a little bit it speedy. And then slow it down just slightly.
And then just slower. That makes perfect sense. Beautiful. Yeah, you can see how that would slow somebody right down and make them more amenable to what's happening. So, on the other hand, you could also turn that around for someone who's perhaps ill and bring them up to a place of more energy, perhaps. Have you seen that happen?
Yes, absolutely. And, the harp is best known for its glissandos.
Yes.
And so one of the things about the ascending glissando is that's exactly, it can help give energy. And if you pay attention to your body when a harpist is doing that, you can actually feel like almost breastbone uplifting, and that's the elevation. And then if someone is really agitated, you can literally help them go down and feel heavier in the bed by doing the descending, glissandos. So it's a wonderful way of using our instrument. And I don't play a lot of like Irish jigs and reels, and that's not necessarily my style of music. But even playing like a familiar song, which is definitely connected to brain health, like Edelweiss or Somewhere Over the Rainbow or Oh Danny Boy, like all of those can be uplifting and can help, even if they're not played fast, they can be on that more upliftment and giving people hope, especially if someone's in the hospital and they're just maybe recovering from surgery, or they want to just they're going to move back out into the world. You want to give them some hope, and that's one of the things music can do.
Oh, it sure can. It's really interesting when you mentioned Edelweiss or Danny Boy. I played that. It was asked of me so many times, even when I played in places like the casino. It's something that people gravitate toward. It's the familiarity. It might even be the key. I'm not sure what it is, but there's something about those familiar and usually older tunes that comfort people, even younger people, not just older people. It's very interesting. Back to the brain. We know that the act of playing our instrument boosts our brain. And there's all kinds of science and research on how amazing playing a musical instrument can be for the brain. But how about listening? Like, is there something about listening to the harp, particularly, or any music that helps the brain?
I would say yes. And one of the things that happens when we listen to music is it emotes all kinds of feelings, a big spectrum. So it might be if we're grieving and we're feeling really sad, maybe we need to go into that sadness to release it, have a good cry. It's actually a musical principle called inclusive attention. Inclusive attention is asking the question, what is meeting me here? And what is meeting me here, and then musically addressing that. And I bring up grieving and sadness because we have a lot of grief and sadness in our cultures right now. And one of the things that I think we're taught from little on up is if we feel sad, play something happy. Well, inclusive attention says the reverse of that. If we feel sad, play something that honors our melancholy, honors our grief, our sadness, and then just ever so slightly you can, move into something that's a little bit happier. And it's almost like a staircase. I see it as a stairway to heaven, if you will, where, and then if it's too much, then come back down. So, music helps us with all kinds of emotions. And one of the things that I believe in our world today is we need to focus and move into inner peace. And when we feel inner peace, then we radiate that out to the world. And in that radiating it out, then that helps the vibrations of the collective. And so I'm a big proponent of listening to relaxing music, music that helps us move to our core of inner peace. And from that, just as I mentioned.
Yeah. You know, it's really interesting you said about people saying play something happy if you're sad. I find that annoying. Like I really like if I'm not feeling very happy, I really don't want to have some kind of chirpy music around. I need to wallow a little bit and then bring myself out of it. So I understand exactly what you're saying. And for people who are listening to this, if you find yourself in that place of discomfort, of unease and or dis-ease, if you're finding yourself there, don't ignore it. I think Tami's word was honoring it, and that is so important. I bet you have an example of that, Tami.
Yeah, so the minor chords. So if you play a musical instrument, you can
and then you transition from the minor to the major.
yes.
Excellent. So yeah, feel that. I love when I'm not feeling so hot or I'm worried or whatever, the first thing I do is go to my harp. And I know a lot of people go to their instruments. I interviewed a lady from England who was a music teacher, and she also said that when she was a teenager, that's how she got through teens, was going to the instrument and working it out that way. And I highly recommend that. How about, Tami, your idea? Firstly, how did you get into this work? Before I go to that, I wanted to ask, how did you start with this?
Yeah. So can I also just interject when you were talking about the English music teacher? I can so relate to that because in my family, I wasn't allowed to express anything except happiness. I was just supposed to be always happy. And so when I started taking piano lessons, which actually is kind of a segue into your next question, my piano was my best friend. It became like the resonator of all of my feelings and processing. So it was quite useful and quite helpful, actually. So I started playing the harp when I turned 30. I had my piano teacher was also a harpist, and she planted the seed many years ago, but when I was turning 30, I was going through a really awful time, and so I ended up giving myself harp lessons for my 30th birthday, and I fell in love with the instrument, literally, from running our fingers up and down the strings, which is what every harpist first does, right, or anybody actually does. And shortly after I started taking lessons, I happened upon a teacher who was in Vermont at the time, Christina Turin, and Christina was just starting the International Harp Therapy Program, IHTP, and I was in the first program back in 1995, and we were her guinea pigs. She was just trying this to see if, it was a viable program and to see if it would work. And it has indeed worked because there's now more than 1,500 of us worldwide that have been certified. So, yeah, and my personal story, when I first started, I was deathly afraid of going into hospitals to the extent that ever since I was a small child, I would go into hospitals and I would pass out. And I hated the smells, the sight of blood, white coats. I mean, the whole thing was just, completely distasteful to me. And it wasn't until I studied in the harp therapy program and really realized the harp could ground me. It's the harp is an instrument of the upper, the upper chakras, the upper vibrations, but it also can be very grounding if you play it in that way. And I found it to be really helpful to ground. And when I would be grounded, then I could offer the gift of playing.
Wow, that's really interesting that you say that about the harp, because I also feel like that it is an upper register sort of thing, but the fact that it sits on the ground and you are wrapping around it, we wrap around this instrument, and there's something about the vibration. I was just at a seniors center here in Ecuador not too long ago, and I brought my little harp so I could walk around with it. But I let every single one of the seniors in the group play the harp. I wanted them to feel the vibration. And there was one gentleman who's legally blind, and he really didn't want to play, but we convinced him to play. And it was amazing, Tami, the transformation in his eyes, in his demeanor, as of course I got them to do the gliss, but as he did the gliss, and I had him put one hand on the harp itself so he could feel the vibration. It was amazing. All of a sudden, this big grin came on his face, and it was like he'd connected to something that he hadn't connected to maybe his whole life, but certainly since he'd lost his eyesight. So yes, I can see how that grounding, that feeling of, and it's all encompassing. It's not just your fingers, it's not just your arms, it's your whole being, it seems like.
The harp is magical. You know, it's a healing instrument, and it's the most vibratory instrument next to the human voice. And so even for him to try it was, you know, the vibrations, even if he wouldn't have felt it on the sound box, you know, he could have still experienced the vibrations of it. And especially being sight impaired, he's probably hyper alert in other senses. And the other thing that story of yours reminds me of, I have read somewhere, and I can't remember a direct quote of this, but that Alzheimer's patients, demented patients, the part of the brain that stores music is the last part of the brain that is impacted via Alzheimer's or dementia. And because of that, that's why, you know, you may be working with an Alzheimer's or demented patient that can't remember your name, they can't remember their own name, their marriage date, you know, whatever, but they might be able to sing "Oh Danny Boy," or if you seat them at the piano, they might be able to play "You Are My Sunshine." And I think that's really fascinating.
To me, that feels like, and you're absolutely right. There is the part of the brain that holds on to those musical memories, and it is the last to go. And that's also why you've seen probably the videos of people being able to listen to music from their youth, and rather than being just in their own world, suddenly they connect with the world at large again, and they talk about it. So one of the things that I recommend to people who are working with family members who are starting to go down that demented or cognitive decline road, to work with them with music, to not just let them listen to it, but to talk about it with them, because it's the memories that the music inspires that is really what the connection is with the outside world. So there's I don't remember his name. There's a physician in California who treats Alzheimer's patients. He has the 5 senses practice where you cook food together. So you smell it and you taste it and you talk about those memories. And music is one of the things where we listen to the music. If they are a musician, then obviously play the instrument, but talk about it, because it's that connection between the memories and the music that strengthens the brain.
Yeah, and one thing, and I learned this the hard way, one thing about music with demented or Alzheimer's patients is familiar music is where it's at. So I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and there's an organization here that it's a woman who has actually purchased several homes and then turns them into Alzheimer's homes for these seniors, elders. Beautiful, beautiful facilities. And I've played there a lot for her, especially before COVID. And one day I was setting up my harp and I was just playing all kinds of non-familiar, not recognizable, and they were all sitting, all these patients were sitting in front of me, the residents were sitting in front of me, and they were all kind of agitated and they were squirmy, and and I was like, wow, really? I'm supposed to be relaxing you, and they're not responding in any way that I want them to or that I would have expected. And so I started playing My Wild Irish Rose, Let Me Call You Sweetheart, just all the oldies. And they were like, oh, I mean, you could just feel their body just relax into it and just love it and explore it. And so I learned that the hard way.
Yeah. So the reason for that is because their memories are connected to that. And when you're demented to that point, anything that is out of the ordinary is too much work. So it would have been a processing problem that they weren't able to process this music that doesn't make any sense, because then they would feel like they're not able to. And when the regular recognizable music comes, then suddenly their brain feels like it's working. So that's why the agitation. Yeah, I've learned a lot about that in the last 10 years of doing research on brain health. You can't tax the brain too much. My mother ultimately died with dementia a couple of years ago, and I could not play anything for her except some old country and Western music. That was what she grew up with. Oh, and some gospel music. That was what she loved. And there was nothing else that would comfort her or give her any kind of joy. She needed to listen to stuff that she recognized.
On the flip side of that, I used to do a lot of speaking to healthcare organizations, church groups, women's groups. I was out and about all the time playing and talking about music and healing. And I would almost always start my presentation with two songs. The first song was called Healers of the Heart, which is written, it's a beautiful, non-familiar song that's written by a fellow harp therapist. And then I would transition into Ode to Joy. And I would do that very mindfully these were not demented folks now. These are, definitely, and what I was intentionally doing with Healers of the Harp, when the Healers of the Heart, giving them something to focus on and releasing all the stresses and the busyness that they came into the presentation with. And it was so fascinating over 20 years of doing that literally in front of thousands of people. I would see them just move into that quiet space, and then when Ode to Joy came, I love that name too, and of course it's a classic from Beethoven, so it's but you could just feel their hearts then expand into that joyful place. So part of what we're both talking about here, I believe, is just being really mindful and using music in its most conscious fashion to help whatever is presenting itself in front of us.
When you talked about joy, that's a big thing for me. My grandmother, she always said, the only thing that you will regret when you're finished this life is the days that you did not experience or share joy. And I truly believe that is 100% true. And with music, whether you make it yourself or whether you listen to it or whether you share it with others, that is really where much of the joy comes in. And we know that a healthy brain is not possible if you don't experience joy and happiness. A happy brain is a healthy brain, bottom line.
And laughter is so good, having fun. I think I've shared with you that I'm on the journey with two ailing elderly parents. They live at a significant distance from me, and I was gone most of February caring for them. And I think part of their generation, and maybe I'm stereotyping and maybe I'm not appropriate here, but my sense is that generation has struggled so much in their lives, and that's like my parents are holding on dearly to their struggle. And when I came back from being with them in July, I was so aware, like, oh my gosh, their whole life is struggle, work, hard work, struggle more. And it's almost like a competition of who can struggle. And I thought, I am going to start a joy journal, and I'm going to write a joy every day. And if I am ready to go to bed at whatever time I'm going and I haven't done a joy today, I'm going to make something happen before I go to bed. So and I haven't really correlated that with the brain, but fire on it. Let's go.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that struggle thing, that's the other part. You're right. They do seem to hold on to that. My father now is 84, and he comes from post World War II Germany. He grew up during the war, and then emigrated to Canada. But he has held on to the struggle and the pain and the hunger and all of that his whole life. I mean, he's been in Canada for 70 years now, but he's still holding on to that pain and that struggle. And it seems like that is the kind of thing. And I can see a difference in him when we get him laughing, when my sister and I will do something to just force him to smile and to laugh. He's a totally different person. His memory is better. He is just completely different. We make him forget about the struggle. And I think that's something that music is able to do like almost nothing else.
It impacts our cells, and, if you play an instrument, play to bring yourself joy.
Tami, this has been wonderful. Are there any special points you would like to offer our listeners to go away with that you'd like them to remember?
So I want to just share a little bit about what I'm currently doing, if that would be okay.
Sure, of course.
So when COVID hit, as I mentioned, I was not allowed at the hospital and hospice bedside any longer, and it literally gutted my whole business. Like, my speaking business went away, I couldn't be in the facilities, and so I was like, well, what am I going to do? And there's always a silver lining in these challenging life events, I believe. And one of the things that happened was what really kept coming to me is I want to use my harp for peace. I want to use my harp for world peace specifically. I have had the opportunity to live in Switzerland and Japan a long time ago for both of those experiences. And when I came back from Switzerland, it was very clear to me that I wanted to work on world peace. And my life, took lots of twists and turns, but now 40 years later, I'm actually working in world peace with the harp. And I started an organization called Healing Harps for Global Peace and Unity. And it's harpists that are all over the world playing for distance healing for Mother Earth, for the birds, for people. We have a play for list. I mean, it's a group of harpists, and it is the sweetest community. You are more than welcome to join us, and I hope that some people that listen to your YouTube and podcast will also be interested in joining us. And it's my life work now, and I'm so excited. I've plugged into the whole peace movement, and there's like this whole community that's been underground, frankly, because it hasn't always been so PC to be politically
Peaceful.
correct to be about peace. And now, the blessing of this awful situation that we're in now is people are tired of the old patriarchal choice, and we're going to make a different choice.
That's beautiful. Yes, many of the people that are on my email list and who will listen to this are harpists. So I do hope they'll reach out to you. How would they be able to do that?
So my email is Tami@musicalreflections.com. They can send me an email, and my website is musicalreflections.com. And if you click on, there's a tab called Services, and it's a drop-down box, and it's the Healing Harps for Global Peace and Unity is there, and yet they can read more about it. We do everything on Zoom, and I do 2 sessions once a month at 2 different time zones or 2 different times, so that we accommodate people from all over. And I have one other little thing that I'd like to show, and that is the little piece harp. And I don't know if you can see
It's got a dove. It has a dove on it. For people who are just listening to this, it's a tiny little harp with a little dove emblem on it. How many strings does it have, Tami?
It has 12 strings.
12 strings.
And the dove is actually, in its mouth, has an olive branch. And it's just a sweet little sound.
Oh, that's something. I'm glad you brought that up, Tami, because I have always said you don't have to be an incredible musician to use music. You can just do what you just did, just pluck. And harps people think that they're the most difficult instrument. And I keep saying, no, they were a folk instrument. They were what the bards used. That's how information got sent around the world, was with singing with the harp. It's a very intuitive instrument and very easy. And it's really hard to make it sound bad, especially that little one. You're probably tuned to the key of C, yeah?
Yes, it's tuned to the key of C. It's got 12 strings, and I've actually have a couple people in the Healing Harps group. That's why I happen to think of it. That this is what they play, and just energetically, when you touch the strings and play a few strings, you change the universe.
Yes.
And so right now we're focused on sending all of these peaceful vibrations to the Ukraine-Russian situation. So yeah, anyway.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, you can send me an email if you'd like more information about these cute little harps, because they're just darling.
And from a brain health point of view, even just playing that, just simple little notes, and you can just hear the melody. You can pick it out yourself. Most anybody can pick out a melody and just enjoy it and send the vibes out there for yourself, for the planet, for your friends and family. Yeah. Thank you, Tami. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your love and your peace.
You're welcome. It's been a joy to be with you. Really, just honestly, great.
Thanks, Tami. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Brain Health Matters. Be sure to subscribe with your favorite podcast service so that you can get all the latest episodes when they're released.